Hi, I'm Joe DiTomaso with the Weed Research and Information Center at the University of California. Today we're going to be talking about different strategies for controlling weeds in landscapes as well as gardens. We're going to look at both chemical and non-chemical strategies, including mechanical control, cultural control, biological control, and of course herbicides. And we're going to focus on herbicides on not only how to achieve selectivity, how to use herbicides properly, what herbicides do in the environment, and how to properly calibrate them.
Hi, my name is Tom Lindeny. I'm a cooperative extension weed ecologist at UC Davis, and today we're here to look at various hand implements and how they're used for weed control in urban settings. What I've got to my right is a series of different hand implements that I'm going to try to demonstrate here in this particular setting to show you how each of these implements work today. And what I'd like to do is maybe start off, since I see a lot of dandelions here, with the implements that work best for dandelion control. And I'll start here with my favorite, the Weed Hound. The Weed Hound is a very simple device. It has just a series of nails and a little thing there. And basically what happens is that when you set it on top of a weed, you push down with your foot on this particular lever here, and the nails go down, grab the root, and then you're able to pull it. You pull it up and you've got your dandelion complete with the taproot of this thing. And then you're able to eject it by just hitting the lever and pop, it's gone. A second one is pretty much a standard one, your dandelion fork. This one is a pretty common one. I think most people have seen this. This is a little longer handled than perhaps some of them that are commercially available, but either way, the dandelion fork works in a similar manner. You just basically push it at the base of the dandelion, and then you hopefully have gotten the root and you could pop that out. That's what you're hoping to do, is get most of that root system. The weed twister is the third and probably the one I like the least, just because it requires the most effort, on my part at least. And it works in a manner where you stick it directly over the top of the thing and then you twist. So basically for the weed twister, I pull it out, and yes, I did. I got most of the root here at least with the weed twister. All the dandelion removal implements will work. However, the amount of effort that each requires varies, and this is why I prefer the Weed Hound as my favorite, and the weed twister probably my least favorite. Okay, now we're shifting from dandelion pullers to various cultivators or hand hoes. And I've got several of them here, and you can see this one's got a certain size blade and this one has a little bit smaller blade. And these are both welded designs, you can see here. So I'll demonstrate the one with the smaller blade. You just chop basically until you get the root of the plant out. And you can see I've got this bed straw out of here. Okay, one of the difficulties or problems that I have with this type of hoe is that when you dig down, you actually create divots in the soil, and those divots may allow some weed seed to be right near the surface again, so you might get a second flush of weeds. The next implement I'll demonstrate is the stirrup hoe. And you could see two different varieties here of the stirrup hoe. The hula hoe, and hula hoe is a brand. Stirrup hoe is a style. Okay, so I'll demonstrate here the hula hoe, the stirrup hoe, and you can see that basically you just scuffle back and forth, and I've got that. But it did take the weed out, not too much effort there. The longer the handle, the less you have to bend over and the better. And so finding hoes with longer handles is also a fairly important feature to avoid as much backache as possible.
The main points of mechanical control is that if you're trying to remove dandelions or similar weeds, you have to make sure that you also remove the taproot. Secondarily, you need to use the right tool for the specific task to reduce the effort that you make. And finally, longer handled tools often reduce back pain.
I'm Steve Fenimore with the University of California, Davis. We're standing here in the Salinas Valley. I work on weed control in vegetables and strawberries. And what we're going to show you today are some methods that strawberry growers use, and that can be used any place in the home garden. These are plastic mulches, and plastic mulches work to control weeds because they block sunlight. Okay, this is a black plastic mulch. This is the best plastic for blocking sunlight. Virtually no light goes through it, and except where there are planting holes, there are no weeds growing under it. About the only exception is nutsedge, which can puncture the plastic and grow through it. But other than that, and field bindweed, other perennial weeds, are difficult to manage with mulch, but all the annual weeds are fairly easily controlled with the black plastic mulch because the sunlight doesn't penetrate. What I'm showing you here are some clear plastic, and clear plastic allows sunlight to pass through, and annual weeds like we have here growing under the plastic in the strawberries, the weeds don't have very much difficulty. As a matter of fact, it's a very nice, warm place for them to grow, and here we have some annual weeds like some black nightshade and low amaranth growing under the plastic, annual weeds, which the black plastic that I showed you earlier is blocking, but the clear plastic here is not. Okay, now we're going to talk about solarization. And solarization is use of clear plastic during a warm time of year, during a time of year when the sunlight is very high. And the idea is that the sunlight passes through the plastic onto the soil, heating up the soil directly. In this case, we've got a well-anchored plastic. We've got a fairly windy day, but this plastic is anchored down and it's not flapping in the breeze. We've got good contact with the soil. Now, we need to trap as much heat as possible over a 4 to 6 week period, so that hopefully during that 4 to 6 week period, we're going to have some days that are going to be quite warm, and those are going to do most of the work for us, because what we want to do is conduct the heat as deep as possible to kill the weed seeds in the soil. We're also going to kill quite a few pathogens, so there are multiple benefits to solarization.
Some of the key topics on mulches made by Dr. Fenimore are that black plastic mulches block light and stop weeds from establishing, whereas clear plastic does not block light and sometimes has no effect on weed germination. However, clear plastic, when it makes good contact with moist soil, can increase soil temperatures high enough to kill weed seeds and even pathogens, but only to a couple of inches deep. This is called solarization.
Good day, I'm Clyde Elmore, a retired weed extension specialist from the University of California at Davis. Today we're going to talk about weed management or control in turf grasses. We've selected for this discussion a golf course as representing high maintenance turf grass growing areas where people spend a lot of energy, time, and money to have the best turf. Here we'd like to actually look at a couple of things. One is to look at the effect of mowing and mowing height. As I mentioned, we are looking at creeping bent grass. The same grass as the taller one here, which is unmowed at the green height, and then on the left we have bent grass that is grown primarily for a putting green, and it's mowed less than 1/2 inch in height. Generally, when this is mowed this way, they're continually maintaining it by either adding fertilizer, adding a very small amount of sand so that the turf will actually continue to grow through the sand. And then if they have any weeds, they may actually either pull them out or cut them out with a cup cutter, which is what they would use to make the hole for the golf course green. Now, in that cutting out, another principle that we have some problems with is if you bring in, say, non-clean soil that might have weed seeds in it, you very frequently will have a spot remaining, which would be of the same size as a cup cutter, but it has weeds growing in it, and then that reinfests the rest of the green. And this happens to be annual bluegrass, which is a very closely related grass, and it will also take very close mowing, and it survives and does well on all of exactly the same conditions that the golf course manager uses to promote his greens bent grass growth. Now we've actually moved off of the green slightly and are looking at sort of the back side of the green where we have relatively low maintenance. You notice that there's not a tight turf here. That's the first thing that you see. We also see open areas back here that allows weeds to germinate and establish. So with different types of turf, if it's highly managed, we may have an inch, 2 inches hole, if you will, or patch, and frequently weeds will not germinate and establish if that turf is well managed and is growing at this normal mowing height, tall fescue 2.5 to 3 inches, or Bermuda grass at 1 inch. However, if we have a 3 or 4 inch hole or something even more open like we see here, then seeds can drop there, germinate, and establish as long as there's moisture. The other thing we want to talk about is some irrigation practices. And one of the reasons we stopped here is that we're sort of on a slope, and you can see this slope going down to a lower area. Now, in this particular location, we have a very tight clay soil, so it doesn't actually move, the water doesn't move into the soil very quickly. And I would like to bring up the concept of what's called pulse irrigation. Now, there's several reasons for it. The tight soil says that we're not going to get water penetration very quickly. So in this area, we might have a pulse of 15 to 20 minutes of irrigation. Then the irrigation system is turned off for roughly, say, 30 minutes to allow the water to percolate into the soil. Then come back with another 15 to 20 minutes and allow that water then to percolate in the soil. This giving us a deep irrigation, and we don't have to do it very frequently. This then would allow us to get water through this upper profile so that the grass has plenty of water, and yet we don't overwater and have it run off into the lower areas and create a potential area for weeds to establish. So by using these various management practices of irrigation, fertilization, mowing, grass selection, and so on, we can actually establish and maintain a very vigorous, nice-looking lawn for a long period of time in most locations in California.
For effective turf weed control, it's important to understand that mowing less than 1/2 inch may require special care for the grass, but it will kill most weeds. In addition, if there are any divots or gaps in the turf, it is going to allow weeds to germinate and establish. When you move new soil into an area to fill in the gaps, you oftentimes can introduce new weed seeds. And finally, when irrigating turf, pulse irrigation is better as it moves water deeper into the soil profile. That makes it available for desired plants. And in addition, it also reduces the risk of runoff and reduces weed competition.